My name is Ethan, and before that day, my life was a perfectly curated digital universe. I was 14 years old, and my world revolved around the glowing screens of my devices. My hands moved with a dancer's precision across controllers, my mind fluent in the complex languages of virtual realms. I knew the lore of every fantasy world, the stats of every character, the strategies to conquer every quest. Outside the screen, my life was comfortable, predictable. School was a place where I mostly survived, extracting just enough information to pass, reserving my true intellectual energy for intricate game puzzles and scrolling through endless feeds. Friends were a loose collection of avatars and voice chat usernames, their faces, pixels, their lives a distant hum. Sunlight was something that glared on my monitor. Real-world problems, global conflicts, climate change, poverty, these were like background noise, far-off sirens that didn't penetrate the insulated walls of my virtual fortress. They were for adults to worry about, abstract concepts that scrolled past my peripheral vision as I chased digital victories. My parents were good people. My mom, a kind, gentle soul, would often try to pull me into conversations about the world outside, about nature, about books. She believed in God in a quiet, comforting way, something about love and prayer, but it felt abstract, like a story that had nothing to do with the urgent, high-stakes battles unfolding on my screen. My dad was a brilliant software engineer, a man who built real-world digital architecture. He understood my fascination with technology, but he also worried about my detachment. He'd try to coax me outdoors, suggesting hikes or bike rides, but my true wilderness was made of pixels. For me, real life was a low-resolution simulation, dull and slow compared to the vibrant, immediate feedback loop of my games. I thought the real world was something for adults to worry about, a problem for future patches, a bug that some genius coder would eventually fix. I was deeply, implicitly certain that technology, the very thing that consumed my life, would eventually solve all its problems, just like a software update. Humanity was always progressing, always innovating, always finding a way around its challenges. The idea that things could genuinely get worse, that the world could actually fail, felt like a game-over screen that was simply impossible for humanity to reach. I was a child of the digital age, cocooned in its infinite possibilities, oblivious to its hidden dangers, utterly confident in the forward march of progress. I had no idea that my carefully constructed virtual reality was about to be shattered, and that the ultimate game over wasn't for a character on a screen, but for a world that was rapidly losing its connection to what was real, a future that was not some distant, abstract problem, but a horrifying, immediate consequence of my own generation's choices. I was about to be shown a terrifying glimpse of a future that felt alarmingly close, a future where the screens would finally go dark and there would be no more patches, only the bitter taste of reality. The day it happened began with a familiar hum, the comforting whir of my gaming PC. It was a Saturday, the perfect day for an all-out gaming marathon. My parents were out, at some outdoor market they were always trying to drag me to. The house was quiet, filled only with the click of my mouse and the triumphant, synthesized sounds of virtual battles. I was deep in a particularly intense boss fight, my focus absolute, my heart pounding with adrenaline, my fingers flying across the keyboard, when a strange, cold tingling began in my left arm. It wasn't pain, not at first, just a creeping numbness, like my arm was falling asleep from gripping the mouse too hard. I tried to shake it off, dismissing it as a weird side effect of intense gaming, maybe a pinched nerve. But the numbness spread, climbing quickly up my arm, a chilling tendril reaching for my chest. A dull ache began to bloom behind my sternum, quickly escalating into a crushing pressure. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart, tightening its grip with merciless force, squeezing the very breath from my lungs. My vision blurred, the vibrant colors of the game world dissolving into a violent, grainy static, the triumphant music twisted into a grotesque, discordant shriek like a dying computer. Panic, cold and raw, flooded my system. My hands, which had been so precise moments before, now fumbled, useless, sliding off the mouse. I tried to call out for help, to reach for my phone, but my voice was a strangled gasp, and my arm felt like lead, unresponsive. I slumped forward, my head hitting the desk with a soft thud, my headphones clattering to the floor. The pressure in my chest intensified, a monstrous, suffocating weight that pressed all consciousness from me. My last conscious thought, a desperate plea, was not for my parents, not for a doctor, but a raw, childlike whisper for the one I only vaguely knew from Sunday school stories. A name from the realm of the abstract and unreal. A name I had never truly believed held any power. God, help me. And then, total, absolute, silent darkness. The next sensation was one of impossible lightness, a feeling of being unburdened, untethered, a sudden, profound release from all pain and weight. I was floating. I was perfectly calm, perfectly peaceful, and I was lighter than a feather, drifting effortlessly upwards. I was hovering near the ceiling of my room, looking down. Below me, my desk chair was overturned, the gaming PC still glowing faintly, forgotten. And on the floor, a small, still figure lay in a crumpled heap, my own body pale and motionless, its headphones askew. I watched, detached and serene, as if observing a scene from a movie, a game I was no longer playing. I saw the faint, blue glow of the screen reflecting on my lifeless face. I felt a pang of sadness, not for myself, but for the boy whose game had finally ended, whose quest had been interrupted, who had missed his final save point. I could hear, faintly, the distant wail of sirens, growing closer. It was the background noise of my world, now signifying the abrupt end of it. The scene below me began to dim, the familiar colors of my room draining away, fading into a uniform, oppressive gray. The sounds of the world, the approaching sirens, the distant hum of traffic, all melted into a profound and unsettling silence. The peaceful detachment I felt shattered, replaced by a growing, creeping dread. I was no longer in my room. I was somewhere else, a place that was vast, empty, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a realm of cold, sterile gray, a desolate landscape that seemed to stretch into infinite nothingness. This was the space between a cosmic waiting room, but it was not empty. It was filled with shadows. The gray expanse was not empty. It was filled with shadows, whispers, and a profound, pervasive coldness that seeped into my very being, a cold that was far more bone-chilling than any winter wind. These were not the demons of Sunday school stories with horns and pitchforks, no fiery monsters. They were far more subtle, far more insidious. They were the manifestations of my own spiritual detachment, of my chosen indifference, given form in this desolate reality. A towering figure, made of swirling, indistinct gray mist, appeared before me. It resonated with a profound sense of cosmic apathy, a chilling reflection of my own past self. You sought comfort in screens. Its voice whispered, a dry, rustling sound, like countless dead leaves skittering across a barren plain. You sought distraction from the messiness of reality. You believed problems were for others to solve, for future generations, for technological fixes. Here there is no distraction, only the stark, cold consequence of your choice. Other shadows, smaller but equally chilling, swirled around me like static on a dying screen. They were the countless hours I had spent in virtual worlds, the thousands of lives I had lived through pixels, the endless notifications that had pulled me away from genuine connection, from the tangible needs of the world. They whispered my own thoughts back to me, twisted into crushing accusations. You thought the real world was boring, dull, too slow. You thought its problems were not yours. You thought others would solve them, that technology would provide a magical patch for human folly. You were an observer, a consumer, never a participant. You assumed a future that you never truly invested in. Here, there are no others, only you and the emptiness you created by your own neglect. Each whisper was a shard of ice in my soul, a devastating reminder of my complacency, my casual disregard for the precious, fragile world I had inherited. My belief that technology would solve everything felt like a cruel joke in this place where all technology was meaningless, where the only reality was the stark absence of warmth and connection. My confident detachment from the world's growing problems was now a crushing, suffocating weight, the ultimate consequence of my own profound procrastination and disengagement. The terror that bloomed within me was not the fear of pain or torment. It was the terror of ultimate regret, the crushing realization that I had chosen to live a life separate from true reality, always looking into a screen, never truly inhabiting the vibrant, messy, urgent present. There was no escape. There was no restart button. There was no new level to conquer. There was no patch. In that moment of soul-crushing despair, stripped of my games, my screens, my very identity as a digital native, all my carefully constructed walls of distraction and indifference crumbled into dust. All that remained was a raw, terrified spark of consciousness, a small, lost boy utterly alone in a universe that had become as indifferent as I had been to its suffering. My knowledge of game lore, of logic puzzles, of strategic combative was all utterly useless. All that remained was a single, desperate, broken plea, a name I had barely whispered with genuine intent in my life, a name I had treated as a character in a story, but now I uttered it as a final, desperate hope, a raw cry from the depths of a truly broken heart. Jesus, please, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. Help me. My cry was a fragile, trembling whisper in the infinite, cold void. Yet, it was a sound that shook the very foundations of that desolate, gray reality. It was as if that single, raw, honest plea ripped a hole in the fabric of the gray desolation. In the far distance, a single point of light appeared. It was infinitesimally small, yet it pulsed with a warmth that I could feel even across the vast, cold expanse. The shadowy accusers recoiled, their forms dissolving like mist in the face of an impossible dawn. The cold, sterile gray did not flee from the light. It was absorbed by it, transformed, infused with a vibrant, living energy. The light expanded, not like an explosion, but like a sunrise unfolding in fast motion, its colors bleeding into the void, turning the bleak expanse into a landscape of unimaginable beauty. The oppressive silence was replaced by a sound, a low, resonant hum that was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was a music that felt like a billion lullabies and 1,000 triumphant anthems all at once, the sound of pure, unadulterated peace. I was no longer in the gray void. I was floating, utterly weightless, immersed in an ocean of this conscious, living light. It was pure, unconditional love, a love that knew every hour I had wasted on screens, every time I had ignored a call for help, every moment of my profound detachment and indifference. It knew all of this, and it held me anyway, without judgment, without condemnation, with a tenderness that shattered my broken heart into a million pieces and then reassembled it, whole and new, cleansed by its embrace. It was the love of a parent who adores their child, not for being perfect, but simply for being. From the heart of this infinite loving presence, a figure began to coalesce. He was not an old man with a beard from a Sunday school story, not a character in a book. He was a being of pure, radiant light, vast and powerful, yet whose eyes held an intimacy that made me feel utterly safe, utterly known. His smile was a homecoming, a recognition that pierced my very soul. My soul knew him instantly, with a certainty that made all my games seem like meaningless toys. It was Jesus. He knelt down, so his face, which was made of pure liquid light, was level with mine. He spoke, not with his mouth, but with a direct flow of understanding into my mind, a voice that was pure love and infinite compassion, a voice that was both thunder and whisper. "Ethan," he said, and my name in his voice felt like the most precious word in the universe, the sound of being fully seen and fully accepted. "I heard you. You are not alone. You are home. I have been waiting for you to call. I have been waiting for you to be present. All my fear, all my shame, All the crushing weight of my isolation and regret dissolved like salt in water. I was safe. I was loved. I was home. "Ethan," Jesus said, his presence a constant, warm embrace, his smile holding all the joy of creation. "You have seen the consequence of distraction. You have felt the void created by a life lived in virtual realities, separate from the tangibility of love and the urgency of now. Now, let us look at the choices that made the ripples in your life, not through the lens of victory and defeat, but through the lens of precious, fleeting moments and their impact on my creation." My short 14-year-old life began to play out around us, not like a recording, but as if we were standing inside the memories themselves, experiencing them from every perspective. We were in my living room, just a few months ago. My mom had come in, her voice gentle, asking if I could help her clean up the kitchen after dinner, maybe share some conversation. I remembered muttering a quick, "Just a minute," my eyes glued to the screen, which turned into 20. In the memory, Jesus let me feel what my mom felt. I felt her quiet sigh, the slight fatigue as she cleaned alone, the small flicker of loneliness that her son was so distant, so engrossed in another world. It wasn't anger. It was a subtle, unaddressed need, a small gray ripple I had created with my inattention. The scene changed. We were at school. A new boy, a shy kid named Leo, had joined our class. He sat alone at lunch, struggling to open his milk carton, his face tight with embarrassment. I remembered seeing him, feeling a fleeting thought of helping, but then turning back to my friends, not wanting to look uncool, wanting to maintain my social status in the game of the playground. Now, Jesus let me feel what Leo felt. I felt his profound embarrassment, the lump in his throat, the small, sharp pain of being invisible, of being utterly alone in a crowded room. I saw how my small choice had reinforced his feeling of loneliness, a dark, prickly ripple. Jesus didn't scold me. He simply held my hand, and the love pouring from him was a gentle, healing sorrow that transformed my shame into a desperate longing to reclaim those lost connections, to go back and offer a hand. "You see, beloved Ethan?" he communicated, his voice infinitely patient. "The ripples are real. Every choice, every non-choice, every moment given or withheld creates a ripple. The world is a vast ocean, and you are always throwing a stone. The golden ones shimmer with joy and connection, and the gray ones cloud the water with sadness and regret. The greatest sorrow is not in your sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples you failed to make, the love you failed to transmit by being present." We saw other scenes. The time I spontaneously helped my neighbor, an elderly woman, carry her heavy groceries, and I felt the surge of gratitude and simple human connection she experienced, a brilliant golden ripple, expanding far beyond that small moment. The time I spent hours creating an elaborate virtual empire in a game, and Jesus showed me that while there was no negative ripple, there was also no positive one. It was a beautiful, but contained energy, a closed circuit of creation that never reached the wider ocean of humanity. The lesson was devastatingly simple. My life wasn't about big achievements in a virtual world. It was about connection, about presence, about whether I was truly living each precious second, or constantly deferring it for a future that might never arrive, or worse, a future that was being destroyed by my own generation's inaction. The greatest sorrow was not in my sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples I had failed to make by being present and engaged in the real world. When the life review ended, I was left with a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of everything, and a deep regret for my past detachment and distraction. But the regret was held in the vast, comforting embrace of Jesus' unending love. "My Lord, my God," my spirit cried out, my voice thick with tears. "I wasted so much. I was so blind, so comfortable in my screens. I thought the future was for others to worry about. What is the truth of the future, then? What is the reality I was so blind to?" Jesus looked at me, and his smile, which had been so full of joy, now softened into an expression of profound, tender sorrow. His eyes, which had held all the laughter of the universe, now seemed to hold all its quiet sadness, a grief so vast it encompassed all of humanity. "Come, my beloved Ethan," he communicated, his voice heavy, resonant with a beautiful, heartbreaking truth. "I will show you the greatest sorrow, the terrifying truth, the truth I wish all my children on earth knew, for it would wake them from their sleep. This is the prophecy, the vision of the path they are on." The radiant landscape of love we were in slowly began to shift, to reconfigure itself. We were looking down upon Earth, but it was not the vibrant, colorful world I knew. It was shrouded in a thick, gray haze, a suffocating blanket that distorted everything. I saw cities, still bustling, but the light that should have streamed from the hearts of its inhabitants was dim, almost extinguished, replaced by the flickering, artificial glow of countless individual screens. The natural world was weeping, its colors muted, its life force struggling. Forests were charred, oceans choked with a black, oily film, once vibrant ecosystems reduced to desolate gray, poisoned landscapes. But it was not just the physical world. I saw human beings, millions upon millions of them, but they were not truly interacting, not truly seeing one another. They were surrounded by invisible, flickering screens, their faces illuminated by artificial light, their ears filled with artificial sound. They were talking, but not listening. They were seeing, but not truly looking. They were touching, but not truly connecting. Their hearts, which Jesus had shown me were meant to be burning with golden light, were dull, like embers dying under a thick ash, because they chose distraction over connection, consumption over creation, indifference over compassion. Their attention was fragmented, their focus stolen by endless streams of trivial information, by the constant chase for more, for better, for the next update, the next game, the next trending video. This is what happens when the ripples of distraction and indifference become a tidal wave. Jesus communicated, his voice a whisper of pure agony, a profound grief that made my small soul tremble. "This is the great terror, my beloved child. This is the pandemic of the walking dead. Not the hot sinner who is raging against me, for his passion might one day be turned to love. Not the cold sinner who has given himself to outright darkness, for in his despair he may yet cry out for the light. No, the one who breaks my Father's heart most profoundly is the lukewarm soul, the comfortable soul, the good person who is so busy with the good things of this life, their careers, their entertainment, their hobbies, their striving for success, that they have no room for the best thing, the fire of my love, the urgency of connection. They are not evil, they are just asleep. They are sleeping in a house that is on fire," Jesus continued, his voice a profound lament, heavy with the weight of humanity's collective slumber. "They are playing games in a boat that is sinking. They think they are alive, they think they are fine, but they are ghosts. They have traded the divine adventure I have called them to the adventure of profound connection, of radical love, of vibrant presence, for a comfortable, safe, and utterly meaningless existence. They have my name on their lips, perhaps, but not my fire in their hearts. They talk about heaven as a distant reward, but they are creating a quiet, unnoticed hell around them, a hell of isolation, of distraction, of unlived moments, of ungiven love. This, Ethan, is the shocking truth. The greatest tragedy is not a soul in hell. The greatest tragedy is a soul that never truly lived, a soul that never truly woke up to the vibrant, urgent, beautiful reality of its existence. They are dying of spiritual thirst, surrounded by an ocean of my love, because they have forgotten how to drink, forgotten how to be truly present, truly alive. They are waiting for me to save them from a future hell, but they are blind to the hell they are already living, the gray, muted existence they have chosen for themselves. And this prophecy, this vision, is not of a far-off future for someone else. It is the path they are on, the consequences of their present choices cascading towards them. If they do not turn, if they do not choose to wake up, the gray will become absolute. The spiritual death will become irreversible. And my Father's heart will break for the children who chose to sleep through their own lives. You thought technology would save them. It is instead becoming their deepest distraction. They must choose to disconnect, to reconnect, to remember what is real. This is the final warning, the ultimate game over that has a human cost, a spiritual cost. He turned to me then, and he knelt down again, his hands on my small shoulders. His eyes were burning with an urgent, divine plea that went straight to the core of my being. "This is why you must go back, Ethan," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that shook my very essence. "You must go back and be my alarm clock. You must wake them up from their comfortable sleep. You are a child of their time, a native of their world of distraction. They will listen to you, perhaps, when they would not listen to the others. You speak their language of screens and games. Now, translate my message into a language they will understand. The stakes are real, the game is not virtual, and their time is running out. This is the final prophecy. Wake up, or the future they fear will become their present." A part of me, the 14-year-old boy who had just found the safest, most loving place in the universe, cried out in desperate protest. "I don't want to go back. It's so gray there. They won't listen. They'll just go back to their games and their busy lives. I want to stay here with you." Jesus seemed to hear my thought. He smiled, a sad, gentle smile. "I know, little warrior. My love is not a peaceful garden to hide in. It is a blazing fire to be shared. You have felt my love. Now you must go and be my love. You have seen the truth. Now you must be my truth. They will not all listen. Many will dismiss you. But if you wake even one heart, if you create one golden ripple in that gray ocean, it is worth every moment of your struggle." His command was absolute, his purpose unwavering. "Go and tell them," he commanded, his voice filling my entire being. "Tell the children and the adults. Tell the busy and the distracted. Tell them to turn off the noise, to look up, to see each other. Tell them to choose connection over distraction, compassion over comfort, real love over virtual likes. Tell them to stop waiting for someone else to solve the problems of their world or to bring them happiness. Tell them they are the solution. Tell them the game of life is real, and the stakes are higher than they can possibly imagine. Tell them to wake up, before it is too late. Go, Ethan. Be my voice. Be my alarm. This is your mission." The weight of the command was immense, a burden too great for a 14-year-old boy. But the love in his eyes, the profound sorrow for his sleeping children, compelled me. My own heart broke for the gray world I had just seen. I had to help him. I had to try. My soul, no longer a child's, gave its full consent. "Okay," I said, the word a sacred vow. "I'll go." The moment I agreed, the world of light and love, the divine presence of Jesus, vanished. I was not gently guided back. I was hurled, thrown, slammed back into the broken, aching prison of my physical body with a violent, agonizing jolt. A convulsive gasp for air tore through my small chest, a scream of pure, searing pain. My eyes flew open to the chaotic, flashing reality of an ambulance interior. A paramedic's face, startled and disbelieving, was inches from mine. "He's breathing! He's got a pulse! I don't believe it!" he yelled to his partner. "We have brain activity! He's back!" The next few days were a strange, disorienting blur of the intensive care unit, of beeping machines and hushed, astonished conversations between doctors and nurses who looked at my charts, then at me, then at each other, shaking their heads in professional bewilderment. "Clinical death for at least 20 minutes, one doctor told my parents, his voice strained with disbelief. The brain damage should be catastrophic. For him to be conscious, let alone lucid, there is no medical precedent. It's truly a miracle." They were scientists looking at a shattered compass, unable to comprehend the divine territory I had just traversed. My mother was a constant, solid presence at my side. Her face was a landscape of profound relief and exhaustion, her prayer beads constantly moving through her fingers. "Thank you, God," she would whisper, kissing my hand. "You returned my child to me." Her prayers of gratitude were heartfelt, directed to the God we had always known. My father sat by my bed for hours, his face a mixture of joy and deep, unsettling confusion. He would hold my hand, his practical, capable mind struggling to grasp the impossible. He was a man who believed in cause and effect, and the effect of me being alive and lucid had no discernible cause that fit his worldview. When I was finally able to speak more than a few weak, raspy words, my parents were sitting with me, their eyes fixed on my face. I looked at them, my heart full of the urgent, burning message I carried, a fire that no amount of pain or skepticism could extinguish. "Mom? Dad?" I whispered, my voice weak and raspy, the words feeling clumsy and inadequate. "I saw Jesus. He's so sad. He said everyone is asleep, and he showed me the future. It's really gray. We have to wake up." My mother's eyes filled with fresh tears, this time not of joy, but of a quiet, profound understanding. "Oh, my sweet child," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Of course he is. He sees everything." My father's reaction was different. He forced a smile, but his eyes were full of a deep, loving concern, a concern that clearly thought I was disoriented or hallucinating. That's great, sweetie," he said, patting my arm. "You had a very powerful dream. Your brain is just trying to make sense of what happened. It's normal to think about God and the future after something like this." I looked at them, my two loving parents, and I knew how hard my mission was going to be. My mother heard my words as a confirmation of a deeper, more vulnerable faith. My father heard them as a symptom of my trauma, a psychological coping mechanism. Neither of them could yet comprehend the terrifying, urgent, and profoundly loving fire behind my simple words. Neither of them understood that I hadn't just had a nice dream about a kind storyteller. I had been given a direct, urgent command from a heartbroken king, a command about the very spiritual state of humanity and the future consequences of its slumber. My physical recovery was long and arduous. I had to relearn simple movements, my body feeling alien and unresponsive at times. But through it all, the spiritual reality I had experienced was far more vivid than any physical pain. The world I returned to seemed fundamentally altered. The trivial worries that had once consumed my small world, what new game was coming out, whether I'd pass a test now, seemed utterly meaningless. How could I care about such small things when I knew Jesus was weeping over a sleeping world hurtling towards a gray future? The casual unkindness of a classmate, the fleeting moments of dishonesty, the endless hours spent on entertainment, these were no longer just minor infractions. They were the gray haze, the spiritual equivalent of slow poison, the very things lulling humanity to sleep. My old life, my games, my carefree play, they all felt like hollow, meaningless things. I understood that every moment was a choice, a chance to make a golden ripple, a chance to awaken a heart, a chance to fight against the overwhelming tide of indifference. I tried to share my message, my urgent warning, and profound revelation. I told my friends at school, "We have to wake up. Jesus is real, and he's sad because we're all distracted, and the future is going to be really gray if we don't change." They would just stare at me with blank, bewildered faces, and then ask if I wanted to play a new game. They thought I was weird or perhaps still a little off from being sick. My words, so profound to me, were just strange noises to them. I tried to tell my Sunday school teacher, trying to explain that being good isn't enough, that the fire of God's love was meant to burn through their comfortable routines and quiet faith, that it was an active force for change. She listened with a patient, patronizing smile. "That's a very passionate thought, Ethan," she said. "But let's focus on our lesson about kindness and obedience. Remember, God loves a cheerful giver." She was taking the fire I was trying to share and putting it in a neat, safe storybook box, taming it into something palatable, something that wouldn't disrupt her orderly classroom. My parents struggled. My mother, my great ally, worried incessantly. She saw my intensity, my newfound seriousness, and she wanted her happy, carefree boy back. She believed my vision but was afraid of its implications, afraid of what it would mean for my childhood, my future. She loved me fiercely and wanted to protect me from the pain of disbelief and ridicule. My father, in his own loving and practical way, tried to fix me. He got me into therapy, hoping a professional could help me process my trauma. He encouraged me to play sports, to reconnect with my old friends, to get back to being a normal kid. "You need to focus on what's real, son," he would say, handing me a basketball. But I couldn't go back. You cannot unsee what I had seen. You cannot unfeel the sorrow of God for his sleeping children and the future they were creating. My greatest challenge and my greatest comfort was the profound change within my own heart. The selfish, thoughtless boy was gone. In his place was a child with an almost painful capacity for empathy, a desperate hunger to make golden ripples. I found myself drawn to the lonely kids, the ones who were being made fun of, the quiet ones others overlooked. I would sit with them, listen to them, not out of a sense of duty, but because I could literally feel their pain, and I knew that sitting with them, truly seeing them, was making a golden ripple, a tiny act of resistance against the gray worries and indifference of the world. My life became a quiet, often misunderstood, mission of awakening. I was a fire starter, but the only way I knew how to start fires was one small, warm act at a time, one quiet conversation, one shared moment of genuine presence, one choice for connection over distraction. I am a man now, with lines of wisdom etched around my eyes, and the quiet strength of a purpose forged in the fire of revelation. The intensity of that 14-year-old boy has mellowed, but the conviction has only deepened. I have learned over the years that you cannot force someone to wake up. You cannot force them to see the spiritual reality that is hidden by the noise and distractions of the world. You can only try to be a light in their room, hoping it stirs them from their slumber. You can only be the alarm clock, ringing softly, persistently, lovingly, but with an unwavering urgency. My mother, before she passed, told me that my unwavering focus on love and presence, even in the hardest times, had deepened her own faith, had taught her that God was not just a distant figure, but a constant, yearning presence. She said my life was a living prayer. My father, before his passing, never fully embraced the spiritual explanation for what happened to me, but he saw the man it made me into. "I don't know what you saw, Ethan," he told me in his final days, his voice rough with emotion. "But whatever it was, it made you the most loving, most awake person I know. And that, my son, is the greatest proof I ever saw of anything truly divine. My life is not what I would have imagined for a boy who wanted to spend his days in virtual worlds. I am not a famous preacher. I am an environmental activist, working on the front lines to protect and restore the natural world, to awaken people to the urgency of climate change and spiritual degradation. My work is my ministry, my mission. I help people turn off their internal noise, turn away from their distractions, and turn towards their deepest selves, towards their raw pain, their buried dreams, and the urgent, tangible reality of their planet. My sermons are not in words alone, but in the act of planting trees, in cleaning polluted rivers, in holding peaceful protests, in helping communities reconnect with the earth and with each other. My church is the forest floor, the riverbank, the shared labor of love, the eyes meeting across a common cause, the hands reaching out for connection. And now, I must speak to you, directly, from the heart of that terrifying vision and the profound love that accompanied it. I am not here to tell you a comforting story about a distant heaven. I am here to share an urgent and profoundly loving message, a shocking vision of the future. The God you may believe in, the kind figure in the clouds, the gentle shepherd, is also a living, breathing, cosmic fire who is heartbroken by our comfortable, lukewarm, spiritual sleep and by the future we are actively creating. He is not asking if you are a good person. He is not asking if you go to church or if you know all the rules. He is asking, with a divine and sorrowful urgency, are you truly alive? Are you awake? Is the fire of my love burning in your heart, or have you contained it in a safe, respectable, religious box, neatly separated from the urgency and messiness of real life and the cries of my suffering creation? The terror I saw in Jesus' eyes was not for the fate of sinners in a fiery hell, but for the fate of the sedated, the distracted, the good people who are missing the entire point of their existence, who are passively allowing the beautiful earth to become a gray wasteland. The greatest tragedy is not a soul lost to hell, but a soul that passed through this world as a ghost, never truly waking up to the divine, fiery, dangerous, and glorious adventure of a life lived in and for the love of God and for the love of His creation. Your life is not a dress rehearsal, it is the main performance. And the future I saw is not fixed. It is a consequence of present choices. So I ask you, as I ask myself every day, are you awake? Is there a fire in your heart? Are you truly living, truly seeing, truly connecting with the real world, with its beauty and its pain? Or are you comfortably asleep, distracting yourself while the world needs your awakened presence? Please, for the love of God, and for the sake of the profound beauty of creation that is waiting for your awakened presence, wake up, turn off the noise, look up, look into the eyes of your neighbor. Feel the sun on your face, listen to the wind, plant a seed of love, not just for humanity, but for the earth itself. The house is on fire, and the only thing that can save us is the very fire of love we have been so afraid to let in. The time to avert that shocking future is now.